The air hostess poured coffee on Black Man's face, but she didn't know he owned an airplane. Kate Myers, a senior air hostess, prided herself on maintaining order on her flights, a dedication that had often been admired by her coworkers and higher-ups. But somewhere along the line, this drive for perfection became tainted, twisted by her prejudices. Today, she'd find herself facing the consequences in a way she'd never anticipated. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below. Justin Chrysler, a tall, well-dressed black man in his late 30s, boarded the plane just after the first-class passengers. With a calm, self-assured demeanor, he was the kind of man who didn't feel the need to flaunt his success. Dressed simply in a navy blazer and dark jeans, his understated style belied his impressive achievements as a businessman, one known for his ventures in the aviation industry. As he settled into his seat, Kate's eyes flicked toward him. She pursed her lips, noticing his seat in the executive class cabin. The flight attendant's polished smile faltered briefly, replaced by a look of disdain that only those who were really watching might catch. But Justin didn't notice. He had traveled enough times to know there were always those who carried outdated biases, and he'd grown accustomed to brushing them off. The flight took off, and as the plane reached cruising altitude, Kate began her service. When she arrived at Justin's row, he smiled politely and asked for a cup of coffee. "Are you sure?" she asked, her tone laced with condescension, as if she questioned his right to be there at all. "Yes, coffee, please," he responded, a hint of confusion in his eyes, but still calm. Moments later, Kate returned, balancing the coffee on a silver tray. But instead of handing it to him, she accidentally tilted the tray, spilling the hot coffee directly onto Justin's face. He gasped, reflexively recoiling from the searing heat, his hand darting to his face to check for burns. A few passengers nearby noticed, their murmurs growing as they registered the situation. Kate, instead of apologizing, muttered, "Maybe next time think twice about ordering something you can't handle." Justin was stunned. For a moment he considered letting it go, as he often had with such encounters. But this time, it was too blatant, too direct. He calmly dabbed at his face with a napkin offered by a fellow passenger, not allowing his expression to betray his hurt or anger. His composure was unshaken, but behind his eyes a quiet storm was brewing. When the plane finally landed, Kate prepared to exit quickly, perhaps sensing she had gone too far. But before she could make her escape, Justin approached her. "Miss Myers," he said in a low, calm voice, his gaze steady. "I'd like a word with you." She blinked, momentarily thrown by his demeanor. The authority in his tone was something she hadn't expected. In her mind, he was just another passenger, one she could ignore. But here he was, standing tall, with a look that unnerved her. "I'll be reporting this incident to your superiors," he continued, his tone still even. "Not just as a customer, but as someone who understands the aviation business deeply." Kate scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You think you can intimidate me? Good luck with that. I'm sure the airline has more important matters than a spilled cup of coffee." "Actually," Justin said, his voice dropping slightly, "I doubt that. Because I'm not just any passenger, Miss Myers. I happen to be the CEO of Chrysler Aviation. You may have heard of us, one of the largest private jet firms in the industry." The blood drained from Kate's face. She knew the name. Chrysler Aviation was known for supplying private jets to VIPs and executives worldwide, a powerful player in the aviation sector. She had never imagined the man she'd belittled and assaulted was actually its CEO. Her mind raced, replaying every sneer, every cruel remark she'd directed at him on the flight. She felt a sinking dread as the gravity of her actions settled in. "This airline is one of our clients, Miss Myers. In fact, we provide the jets for their VIP flights. Your behavior not only affects me personally, but could damage our partnership." "Mr. Chrysler," she stammered, a desperate plea in her voice. "I didn't mean to—" "Enough!" he interrupted sharply, his gaze unyielding. "This wasn't a mere accident. You acted on your biases and you know it. People like you may think they can get away with this behavior, but that stops today." Before Kate could respond, Justin turned to one of the senior flight attendants who had witnessed the incident. "Please inform the airline manager of what happened here," he instructed. "I'll be filing a formal complaint. They need to know how passengers are being treated." As Justin walked away, Kate felt the eyes of her colleagues and the remaining passengers on her, their silent judgment pressing down on her. She had thought she was untouchable in her role, protected by years of service and a facade of professionalism. But in her arrogance, she had failed to recognize the power held by the man she'd so callously dismissed. A week later, the airline announced that Kate's employment had been terminated. But for Justin, this incident became something more than personal justice. It was a reminder of the importance of dignity, respect, and the resilience required to stand against prejudice. After the news of Kate's termination made its way through the airline, her story became a cautionary tale. But for Kate, the reality hit even harder than the mere loss of her job. With her reputation tarnished and her career in ruins, she struggled to move on. Doors that had once been wide open for her in the aviation industry were now tightly shut. Her resume became a reminder of her actions that day, and every job interview she managed to secure seemed to end the same way: unease from the interviewer and a polite but firm rejection. Meanwhile, Justin's life carried on, though the incident left a lasting impact. He couldn't forget the pain and humiliation he felt that day, not just from the coffee burn, but from the deep-rooted prejudice it represented. Although he was no stranger to discrimination, it still stung, a reminder that even his success and influence could not shield him entirely from bias. However, instead of allowing bitterness to fester, Justin channeled his energy into creating change. As a man who believed in turning hardship into opportunity, he made a decision. He would expand his efforts to address inequities within the airline industry itself. He began a new initiative within Chrysler Aviation, aiming to create training programs focused on inclusivity, diversity, and anti-bias education for flight attendants and airline staff. His goal was to prevent incidents like the one he experienced from happening to others, and to foster a culture where all passengers, regardless of background, felt respected and welcomed. Through his influence, he initiated partnerships with various airlines, offering workshops and consulting sessions on building a more inclusive workforce. His efforts were well received, and several major airlines embraced the program, recognizing it as an opportunity to improve their customer service and corporate culture. But Justin didn't stop there. He also started a foundation aimed at supporting aspiring minority pilots, mechanics, and airline professionals. Named Lift Above, the foundation provided scholarships, mentoring programs, and career guidance, giving young people from underrepresented backgrounds a path into the aviation industry. The foundation quickly gained attention, drawing support from industry leaders and high-profile executives who appreciated Justin's vision and dedication. A few months later, fate had one more twist in store for both Justin and Kate. During a diversity conference, Justin was giving a keynote speech, sharing his story and the motivations behind his work. He spoke with sincerity, talking about the changes he hoped to see in the industry, as well as the importance of humility, respect, and empathy. Unbeknownst to him, Kate was in the audience, seated near the back. After months of grappling with shame and self-reflection, she had decided to attend the conference in search of a new direction, hoping to learn from others who were working toward more inclusive workplaces. As she listened to Justin's story, guilt washed over her once again. But this time, it wasn't accompanied by defensiveness or self-pity. It was accompanied by a deep desire to change. She realized that she had been granted a rare chance, a moment where she could either walk away and remain in bitterness or confront her past mistakes and become someone better. At the end of the speech, Kate mustered her courage, approaching Justin as he stepped down from the podium. He didn't recognize her at first. In the sea of faces he met at such events, hers was just another until she introduced herself. "Mr. Chrysler, Justin. I don't expect you to remember me, but my name is Kate Myers. I was the flight attendant on that day. I'm the one who poured coffee on you." Justin's face hardened, his instinct telling him to simply walk away, but something in her expression stopped him. She looked different, not just in appearance, but in a way he couldn't quite place. I lost my job, as I'm sure you know, she continued, her voice wavering. And I've been given time to think. It's changed me. I thought I was someone who treated everyone fairly, that I was above biases, but I see now that I was wrong. She hesitated, struggling to find the words. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say that I'm sorry. For everything. Justin looked at her, seeing the vulnerability and remorse etched in her face. He took a deep breath, nodding slowly. I appreciate your apology, Kate. What matters now is what you choose to do from here. Kate nodded, blinking back tears. I want to change. I want to help others, to make amends in any way I can. And if you're willing, I'd like to contribute to your foundation. I don't know how, but I want to be part of the solution. Her words took him by surprise, but after a moment, Justin nodded. If you're serious, there may be a place for you. Lift Above could use someone who understands what it's like to change from the inside out, but it won't be easy. I'm ready for that, she replied, determination in her voice. In the weeks that followed, Kate joined Lift Above as a volunteer, where she dedicated herself to helping young people who had faced prejudice and limited opportunities, just as she had once dismissed Justin. Over time, she proved herself, both to others and to herself. Her journey was long and filled with moments of discomfort and hard truths, but she persevered. As for Justin, he felt a quiet satisfaction, not just in watching Kate's transformation, but in seeing the ripple effect his foundation had begun to create. Through his perseverance and grace, he had turned an ugly incident into a powerful force for good, one that had the power to lift others, regardless of their background, and to shape a better, more inclusive future in the skies. Leave a comment if you enjoyed this story. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll make me very happy. Thank you, and I look forward to your like.